Welcome to the Love, Sex and Freedom podcast. This is where you're going to discover how to bring awakening into the body and into everyday life through powerful tantric teachings. Get ready to release, open and step into your true power.
Thanks for everyone joining us today. And these lives, Raven and I are going to be doing together on a regular basis, fortnightly, biannually for those of you in America. And really part of this came about because of the conversations that I get to have with Raven, working with her, living with her, traveling with her, and really just to open a conversation about topics that have completely changed my life and continue to touch the lives of others through our in-person events and our online courses, but now that you guys get to access through these live platforms. So here we are. And welcome, Raven. Nice to see you. And yeah, the topic for today is around self-worth. And I remember when I first met you some 8-9 years ago, that's probably the thing that stood out the most, is a very grounded, centered empowerment and self-worth in the way that you relate to yourself and the way that you relate to others that I've just seen grow and expand beyond the years, but also something that has been quite foundational to you, which I think is really unique in this world. So yeah, and it's a topic that so many people, myself included, have, had such journeys with and really struggle with at times, and it just impacts so many areas of life. So I'll hand over to you now just to share how that feels for you, how you got there, and what people can do to expand that self-worth in an embodied way in their lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I feel like I was really blessed with a father who always really held space for me and witnessed a lot of my inner and outer world without judgment and gave me unconditional love. So I feel like at a foundational level, that is what's had the most influence. Like if you're not being criticized for who you are or your emotional body, if you're feeling a consistent level of presence as a woman from your father, what I'm learning is that makes a big impact. And I think what I notice is that a lot of women, when they start being active sexually or in relationships, they are tolerating not being fully chosen or not feeling fully loved and being able to receive love. Whereas I was taught from a very early age that sexuality is sacred, that only give my body to someone when I feel love for them and when I'm receiving love. My dad actually recommended that I make love to women first, which I did with my best friend for years. And yeah, my first partner was when I was 19, and it was like 8 months before I made love to him. And I've never made love to anyone without feeling their love for me. So I feel like I've never been in sexual situations other than the abuse when I was very young that haven't been really honoring, where I haven't felt held and loved. And I've also always been in relationships where there's a high level of devotion from my partner and full choosing from them. And I think in my earlier years before I got into Tantra, I never really thought about that being super unusual. And then in Tantra, everyone's teaching about, this theme around sacred sexuality of it requiring love and the heart. Whereas, yeah, I already knew that, and that relationships need to be foundationally based on a polarity between masculine and feminine, where the man is able to hold space, create safety, lead, and the woman's able to surrender and experience being fully held, where, yeah, I'd always had that. So, of course, I've had my own relationship challenges, but I've always been with men who hold a strong masculine, and I've never doubted their love for me in and out of the bedroom. So I feel like that made a real difference. And then, yeah, I guess in expanding that level of self-worth, a big shift for me happened when I realized that I got to choose exactly what I wanted in relationship and not settle for anything less. So I'll go more into that and be even more fully myself. So I always had permission growing up to be fully myself. So I've never had an issue, kind of saying what I think and how I feel about things. However, I did have a strong caretaking energy and rescuer energy. That's been a lot of my journey with self-worth. No, it's like self-worth and receiving, I've realized, go hand in hand. And until we really open to receiving love fully, receiving our needs and not trying to bypass them, I think there was a lot of avoidance on my end of my deep longings and needs, because I would think, oh, I just need to give that to myself, which is definitely a part of the self-worth journey, but it's not the full picture. And I have so much to say about this topic. So if you can ask specific questions.
Great. I have a few.
Great.
So my first question is, for those of us, probably a majority of the population who haven't had that upbringing and haven't had that foundation, how do people actually create that for themselves as adults now when they didn't have that from a parent, from a father?
Yeah, so the first way is to cultivate that healthy masculine within yourself. And anyone who knows my teachings knows I'm very passionate about this. So having a masculine awareness that is in relationship with the emotional body, with aliveness, and able to witness that without judgment, create safety for it to be fully there, and also be really present with that, and hold space for that. So there's this thing that I notice so much with people who don't have that healthy father energy within them, where they're over analyzing everything that they're experiencing, and they're feeling something, and then they go into this huge catastrophizing and analysis and focus on these feelings and having to fix them. And it's this obsession with personal development and being the best version of themselves. And it's actually really self-harming to be constantly analyzing and judging your experience, because we're just here having our experience. And I guess that feeling I had with my father of being able to be in my experience, and he was an EFT practitioner, emotional freedom technique. So often when I had feelings arise, he would get me to tap on different parts of my body and say, even though I'm feeling sad or angry or frustrated, whatever I was feeling, I deeply and completely accept myself and love myself unconditionally. So this modality is very aligned with Tantra in the sense that no matter what we're feeling, we're still lovable. And can we be with what's arising in us without creating separation from the person or the situation that is triggering the more unpleasant emotions? So what most people do is, if they're relating to someone who makes them feel insecure or sad or angry or whatever, then they withdraw their energy and create separation, because they can't actually be with what's arising in them, because there's so much noise in their head about it. Like, what are they thinking about me? Why did they say that? Does this mean this? Does that mean that? I'm not good enough. Or, like maybe they're trying to make me feel bad about myself, and all of this talking, all of this judgment, rather than just noticing. So meditation is such a key part of this. And I grew up meditating, and, Dad had me meditating from the age of 4. I would feel something. He would take me into just witnessing that and practicing EFT. It wasn't the full picture, as a lot of my story, I needed to then bring in tantric principles to balance that, because it was a very masculine approach that led to some bypass in my life. But foundationally, it was amazing, because I just don't experience giving a fuck what people think, really. I'm not even focused. I'm focused on my own experience, and I never ever think, actually, ever, like if I'm posting something on social media or having a conversation or acting in a certain way, there's never a thought that enters my mind of what will someone think of me. I'm just focused on my experience. So again, those of you who know me know I'm very ready to admit my flaws and my shortcomings and challenges. This has never been a challenge for me. And what I can say is that if you cultivate a meditative awareness that can actually hold space, witness without judgment, and create safety for whatever aliveness is showing up for you, then you're going to have a centered energy, because you can be with that. And then the feminine piece to that is to then be able to, when you are feeling things, sometimes there's messages from those feelings where you need to set boundaries, or maybe you want to be somewhere else, or you're following a longing, or you're making a request from your partner or a friend. So it doesn't mean to only witness, but I feel like meditation is the foundation of every practice in Tantra, just like it's the foundation of every practice in every spiritual tradition. So the first thing is to cultivate that masculine energy within, with a meditation practice, with a coexistence of masculine, feminine energies, where awareness is in relationship with aliveness in a non-judgmental way. And then the second thing is choose relationships where you feel held, where you feel consistent love. So I naturally did that because that was normal for me to relate to men in that way, because there was that consistency from my father. There wasn't the physical consistency. So of course I attracted relationships where there was a lot of physical leading, but there was that emotional consistency. So it's also being aware that you're attracting, a lot of times, the dynamic that you have with your father or your mother. It's easy for me to talk to women here, but for the men listening, it's the same the other way around. But it's usually women who are really interested in this topic, because it's, again, really connected to the feminine receivership. So it's really hard to say no for a lot of women to relationships where they're not feeling fully chosen, consistently held, juicy, passionate, resonant, and lit up by the relationship. And every relationship has challenges. But like, if I try to think of the last time Matisse and I had a challenge, it's probably, around Living Tantra Retreat, which tends to happen, but we go weeks and weeks without anything coming up. And what's normal in the spiritual world even is that stuff's coming up every day. It's like relationships aren't meant to be such a friggin' struggle, and I feel like the struggle is because of that first issue I spoke of, the incapacity to be with what's arising in us and not create separation when there's the harder feelings. And secondly, not choosing someone who actually you feel safe with and turned on by and who's compatible with you in your values and the things that matter.
So where is that balance in relationship then for people who are working with this self-love, but don't have that inherent knowing that they're lovable that you grew up with, that in relationship those obsessive thoughts are coming, and then kind of there can be some sabotage in the relationship, versus that they're incompatible with that other person, because that over analytical mind that goes into like negative outcome focus and overthinking, catastrophizing, what part of that is like an internal reality of actually creating more drama than is actually there, versus that the relationship is incompatible? How to differentiate between that?
Right. So the obsessive compulsive doubting and thoughts, that is one thing. And then incompatibility is obvious. It's like, okay, does their lifestyle align with my lifestyle? Is the lifestyle that they have compatible with the lifestyle that I want? Am I turned on by them? If you're not turned on by them, you're not compatible. If your lifestyle isn't aligned, you're not compatible. If your values aren't aligned, you're not compatible. And when I work with people, it becomes very obvious very quickly. Like sometimes I'll be working with a woman who wants to be a mum and her partner doesn't want to be a father. And there's all of this inner turmoil about this. It's like, get out of the relationship. If that's really important to you, get out of the relationship. Or maybe a woman's with a man with a young child or vice versa, and they're not actually wanting to be a parent. Get out of the relationship. Like, stop compromising what's important to you. Or maybe the person's style of communication or the place they're at with their inner work, it feels obvious that it's not resonant with you. And we know there's the logical, objective looking at a relationship and seeing the incompatibilities. And then there's the deep intuitive felt sense. And the fact that you're doubting it all the time could be because of obsessive compulsive thinking about the relationship. Anyone who's obsessed with relationship is going to doubt the relationship, right? But just because they're doubting the relationship because of that doesn't mean they're not also doubting it on well-founded grounds of incompatibility. So you just really need to look at it objectively. And if your consciousness, your hearts, your sexuality are aligned and you're still doubting it all the time, then you know that it's because of your obsessive compulsive thinking about the relationship and focus on the relationship. Mm-hmm. And anyone who is relying on relationship as their main source of joy, rather than an addition to their joy, is going to, of course, doubt the relationship because they're putting all of their eggs in one basket, and no one's going to be able to fulfill that. If you're not feeling joy from the inside out, then you're going to create problems in your relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. So I hear you saying so far that this foundation around the masculine is working with meditation. Maybe people can look at EFT as well if they haven't had exposure to those types of practices in their life. And then there's the feminine side of it with self-worth, which is communicating needs and boundaries, feeling the emotional body and what's deeper than that, and expressing what they need to in relationship to others.
I'll something to both of those. With the masculine piece, in the meditation and in the expressing of needs, well, the feminine piece of expressing needs and the masculine piece of being able to be with what's arising without creating separation, there's actually a lot of tantric tools that are accessible. And we have a free offering, Tantra 101, that has a lot of those basic tools. So it's not just the typical meditation always, that's important, of just sitting in stillness and witnessing the breath and feeling how the breath is and the vibration of the breath connects us to the body and being able to feel our feelings and witness them, but also a somatic style of meditation where you're involving the body and allowing breath, sound, and movement to accompany your experience, which was what was missing. So even though EFT is great, I feel like, I don't use EFT anymore. I feel like what is even more useful, check out EFT, because if you have a lot of freeze or you're not very connected to your emotional body, it's perfect. But the next step from that is a more Osho style meditation, a more dynamic meditation where you're letting the body shake, you're letting some of the anger be released out of your body. And, that's a deeper investigation. You're letting yourself cry, you're letting yourself dance and move with the feelings. There's so many different practices in Tantra. You're giving your voice dialoguing and letting out, because there's so many frozen parts in time from our life where we didn't feel worthy, where we weren't receiving the love that we needed. And in a journey of cultivating self-worth, a lot of that comes up. So yes, we're meditating on it in stillness, and we're also we're giving that breath, sounds, and movements so that that stuck energy can be released out of the body, or the fear, frustration, and sadness that's been around not feeling worthy and choosing relationships that have created even more of that, and the relationship with our father that impacted us. And then once we've discharged a lot of that, we're creating space for something new. And that's where the feminine piece comes in, of yes, asking for what we need, setting boundaries, but also actually following our heart, consciousness, and sexuality into a relationship where we feel completely met and held. And yes, you can feel completely met and held. And I have felt that. I feel that way in my current relationship. I felt that way with Aaron, my previous relationship, where there's not a lot of drama, where the most consistent energy is ease, joy, peace, pleasure, and service together, if that's also important to you.
Beautiful. And yeah, what I'm just feeling to share is this space of when there's strong triggers that are coming up in life, then yes, that's the time to like sit with, observe, feel what there is to feel, express, to use these tools. But also it's filtered into everyday life as well. So it's watching the thoughts throughout the day. It's catching when there's tension and a contraction in the body, and allowing that to release. Like public toilets for me are great for that. You know? Now where I am in my journey, I can't bottle it up anymore. It's very hard to suppress it. So I'll go off and I'll have a little shake and I'll release what there is. So it's like this deep mining when there's something big there to feel, and to really give yourself the time and space to go there. But it's also just becomes a day by day experience, where it can be even some deep breaths and sound while you're driving your car, while you're going to your next meeting, while you're on the toilet. It's not just on the mat in meditation, in ashram. It's in our everyday interactions with life.
Yeah, and Tantra is life. And the ultimate practice of Tantra is that life is a meditation. And we really need to start to witness all of the ways that we create separation from anything that's not validating us. And the core issue with self-worth is that whoever has low self-worth is needing their worth to be validated by praise, by reassurance, by feeling uplifted, or feeling like they're needed, or whatever it is. It's coming from an external source. So part of the meditation is to increase awareness around your intention behind things. Like, why am I posting this post? Is it to get followers? Is it to get validation? Is it to get comments? Or is it to really be in the expression of who I am? And that expression is not dependent on my audience or how they're responding. And then when we're socializing, or when we're talking to our partners, or when we're making choices, why am I choosing to go here, to go there? Why am I wanting to express this? Is it to get validation and reassurance? Or is it because this is what feels most natural? This is what's in my joy. And yeah, it's really interesting, because I find that most people are either self-obsessed or obsessed with their relationship, or a combination of both. Usually what's happening inside is happening outside. And when we're not so obsessed with getting people's approval, with feeling amazing, with having to, like avoiding situations that don't make us feel good, only wanting to be in situations that do make us feel good, all that over-analysis, comparison, competition, obsessing over what our partner's thinking, feeling, doing. It's like the same obsessive thoughts we have about ourselves, we have about our partner. So this journey into self-worth is actually letting go, in a way, of the small self, or so much attachment to the identity, and just being in the present moment, returning to the innocence of a child. You know, I feel that children are the masters, really. And as a mother of a 20-year-old and a 15-year-old, I can safely say that of all the teachers I've had in my life, they're my greatest teachers. And the first 5 years with Sadell, my oldest, where I got to be home with her and out in nature every day, just watching her. After all the meditation training I did, this was it. And all the teachers I had, just seeing the no mind, you know, just that she's in awe of life, curious about life, moving towards naturally what she's curious about and what feels good when something doesn't feel good, crying, throwing a tantrum, asking for a hug from me, asking me to take her away from whatever it is, you know, if she wanted to be, or just feeling what she's feeling and then moving on most of the time. So there is that natural place in children where they do have a no, they do have a yes, they share when they want to get out of a situation. They move past emotions without analyzing them. It's like, you know, if Sadell hurt herself in the playground or someone was mean to her, I didn't try to fix her. Well, not in that situation. I'm definitely not perfect as a parent. If there's ever a time I don't just hold space and it's without judgment, it's definitely with my kids. But definitely there was so much time in playgrounds with her because she loves nature. And if something happened, I would just let her cry. I would just hold her. You know, caressing is a meditation in Tantra, that a soothing caress. And I wouldn't say, oh, don't worry about what they said, or really say anything. I would just hold her and say, yeah, that's fair enough that you're feeling sad, because those words are often what my dad would say. You know, do we have tea together? And he's like, how are you feeling? I'm like, sad. He's like, yeah, fair enough. Validate that. He had like a 3-step process with me where identify what you're feeling, validate your experience, and then tap on it. And I still naturally have that imprint of identify it, validate it, and then yeah, I don't just tap on it anymore. I also use express and release tools and aspecting and voice dialogue and lots of different things. So the point here is that when we're actually living in our naturalness, like a child, which is the highest posture, the most enlightened posture, before we've been indoctrinated or conditioned to believe that our emotions aren't okay, right? Before we're told, don't throw a tantrum, don't get angry, go to your room and do that, or whatever it is. We have a capacity to be very present. And this is what all of this comes down to. This is what all spiritual practice comes down to, is can we be present right here, right now, and allow what's here to be here fully without resistance. And when we give ourselves that level of self-love, that level of self-compassion, that level of embodiment without all of the mind stuff, naturally our self-worth is elevated. And naturally, when we're consistently not feeling good in a relationship, it doesn't even matter why. It's like, this isn't working. And part of the reason why I say choose relationships that are compatible, choose relationships where you feel safe and held, is because this is such a big part of the healing process. So I remember when I was first with Aaron, and I got upset about something. And then the next time we talked, I was scared because I was used to being in relationships for like 10 years before that, where there was a shaming of any time that I was not an ideal spiritual woman, I guess, and communicating perfectly. And so there was this kind of fear and walking on eggshells whenever I spoke up. So there was this first time in mine and Aaron's relationship, I remember it very clearly, where I got upset and I was in a heightened state and sharing with him how I felt. And he responded to that. And my previous relationships, they would be good at the time because they knew the practice of full body listening, active listening, holding space, and had strong masculines. But later they would withdraw from me. And then the next time I spoke to Aaron, he was like, hey, baby, and like talking to me lovingly. And I'm like, oh, are you okay about our last conversation? He said, yeah, we completed that. I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah, I'm sorry if I was a little bit escalated. He's like, that's fine. It was fair enough. I heard you in everything you said. And I'm like, oh, fuck, wow. And that whole relationship with him reset me into this space of it's okay to be human. It's okay to get upset sometimes. It's okay to have feelings. And that was incredible. And that really elevated my self-worth, that I'm still lovable even when I'm not perfect. And then same with Matisse. There's been many times where I've been unreasonable or, I've been escalated, and he never brings it up again. There's no punishment. And there is a safety between us that I felt from the beginning, and with Aaron that I felt from the beginning. And this isn't something that you can conceptualize. You either feel safe with someone or you don't. You either feel turned on by someone or you don't. You either feel inspired by someone or you don't. So take all of the specific compatibility questions out of it, and just, even if you look at it in a general sense, so do I trust and respect this person? Would I want their life? If you wouldn't want the life of your partner, you're with the wrong partner, right? Of course, there might be certain elements. Like, if I was a dude, Aaron's life's fucking great. If I was a dude, Matisse's life is fucking great. They don't head fuck themselves. They're fluid. They're in flow. They're amazing. They're creative. But, with other partners where there hasn't been strong compatibility, but a strong pull, I'm like, oh, I wouldn't want to be them, because, there's a lot of turmoil. There's a lot of choices they make that I wouldn't make. And that's not to say that they're wrong and I'm right. There's to say there's not a natural resonance. There's not a natural safety and compatibility.
And knowing you and seeing your journey, that shift to actually attract your present and your second relationship with Aaron, the one previous, was you being in a relationship with someone who there was deep attraction and love and connection with, but not a lot of safety. And I saw the process that you went through of giving that to yourself, and then finally leaving that relationship and choosing yourself in that, and what that then opened, and the courage that took. So I think a big piece of it for women as well, and for men, is to having the courage to know that if they're leaving something that feels like, I'm never going to be with someone as amazing as this, or feel loved the way that I do now, that it does get better every time. And choosing ourselves means that we're kind of energetically saying to ourselves and the universe, I'm a no to being treated this way and being this dynamic. So that door needs to close before the other door can open, to be like, this is my worth. This is what I'm waiting for. And I'd rather be with myself. And the beauty of that alone or one state than settling for this then opens that possibility of attracting a relationship that is matching that level of self-worth.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the way you always tie everything in. And a really important part of the transition from my relationship before Aaron to my relationship with Aaron was realizing that it's not always self-responsibility that I need to take. It's like, if I'm feeling out, I don't need to always look at me. It's like, sometimes it's actually because of the relationship and the other person, and maybe I don't want to be with them. There was so much trying in me. And that's why I said at the beginning, like, I noticed this thing with people on a spiritual journey where they're like overtaking responsibility at times.
Yes.
I need to work on this. Maybe you don't need to work on anything. You just need to realize that this isn't flowing. This isn't what you want. And in the choosing of that resonance, so much heals. So there's the healing that happens with your own masculine, with your inner relationship, with your inner union, and your capacity to have masculine and feminine coexisting in a way that supports being in this present moment and feeling life as a meditation, and not creating separation when there's the harder feelings to feel, because we're not judging that or resisting that. And that's a journey. Equally as a journey is no longer settling, and the healing that happens when you're actually choosing things that are full fuck yes is incredible. The healing that happens when you're with someone who you feel safe with and turned on by is incredible. And the reason I keep bringing that in, that and feel turned on by, is because it's easy to go for something safe, but there's no passion. and no chemistry, right? Because a lot of the times when there's heaps of passion and chemistry, it's a trauma bonding situation where the only time you're feeling really loved and cherished is sexually. And then there's this, your body is just always longing for that and craving for that. But it is possible to have that turn on and to have the safety. I remember again with Aaron, I didn't know why there wasn't such a strong sexual pulse at the beginning, like a desperation for what I look back at, because there wasn't such a contrast with him in the bedroom and out of the bedroom. He was always really loving towards me, actually. He's like one of the most beautiful, loving men I've ever met in my life. And we're still really close friends, and I still feel really safe with him. And it's a beautiful thing to be with someone who is in the energy of gratitude, love, exploration, following their heart, following their joy, being able to fully choose you and commit to you 95% of the time. And that's possible. And I've got that again and again. It's not because I'm special. It's just because I'm not settling for any less than that anymore. And a relationship can have the two previous relationships were strong connection, right? And they were beautiful men too, but that full resonance and safety wasn't there.
And I think that settling piece, especially if for people who are on the spiritual path, it's like, so much around Tantra and soul evolution is about inner union. And it is about looking at the reflection, and it is about becoming whole within and giving ourselves what we need. But then that can be done to the extreme. And then everything is about, what do I need to improve? And, I've seen in my own psyche how a situation that once I leave a relationship, I objectively look at and go, how did I possibly think that was okay? But my spiritual hat on, I'm understanding, this was my part. And then I'm like having compassion and understanding their part. But the body knows. And, looking back on those situations, I'm like, how was my body feeling? I was feeling sick to my stomach. I was feeling contracted. I wasn't feeling safe. And I think, the work that I've been doing with you and what we share with the Academy is, it's like, I'm really getting that bit where we can't trust the mind a lot of the time when we're in this like push-pull dynamic of relationship. But actually, if we just go, all right, I'm not going to try and figure this out with my spiritual psychology hat on, but actually just feel the truth of what's there. And then it's really simple and it becomes really clear. I don't safe. I'm not actually in love with this person. I'm not actually in love with this person. I'd be rather hanging out with my girlfriend or on my business because this person is inspiring me, so there's so many elements to it that if we just drop into the body rather than, how sneaky is the ego and the mind that it even brings spirituality and as a way to bypass what we're feeling.
Well, and I want to add to that, because if I look back on those relationships, a lot of what was happening that was diminishing my self-worth was exactly what I was doing to myself. So if you're analyzing yourself, if you're not fully choosing yourself, if you're shaming yourself, if you're overly focusing on yourself to the point of feeling like, just in this fucking world of your own where you can't really see anything else, then that's the reflection you're going to get. Your partner's going to be in all your shit. Your partner's going to be over analyzing you. Your partner's going to be controlling you. So there is the self-responsibility, I guess, that does come into it. And the logical mind is to actually ask yourself, what is it that I don't like about what's happening in this relationship? And that is the best shadow work you can ever do, because when I asked that question in relationships that I wasn't feeling safe with, I was feeling controlled, I was feeling overanalyzed, I was feeling ashamed whenever I didn't have the good feelings. And guess what? I was doing all that to myself. I was controlling myself. I was controlling my behavior. I was analyzing everything, and I was definitely thinking there was something wrong with me still when I wasn't this perfect spiritual woman. So part of my healing of that was the self-love, self-compassion, and absolute holding of all of my vulnerability, and really embodying the tantric principle that I was teaching at the time, but then embodied it in the next level, which is that all of me is lovable. Every little part of me is lovable. And then we're not stopping ourselves from expressing. We're not worried about what people think, because what we're feeling in here is actually the comfort zone. So you're always over analyzing, obsessing, shaming yourself. Of course, you're going to attract a relationship like that. And unconsciously, you're going to want a relationship like that because it's in your comfort zone. If you're always avoiding and in addiction and or whatever it is. And the other thing that I want to say here that's coming to me is the most common incompatibilities that arise with women that I work with is the baby thing, right? If you want a baby and he doesn't, or you don't want a baby and he does, get out. If none of you want to compromise, if he lives overseas, it's like women need consistent touch and quality time. I've never, ever met a woman who doesn't become anxious when she's not living in the same state or country as her partner. And then they're saying to me, I've got anxious attachment. I'm like, you don't have fucking anxious attachment. You're just a woman who needs consistent love and quality time and touch. Or like, oh, I have anxious attachment because whenever he, gets angry with me and withdraws from me when I'm having feelings, I can't be with that and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no, you just want to feel safe with your partner, that when you're having feelings, they can still be there for you. And I'm not talking about the feelings that you're projecting and spewing all over him. I'm talking about just the feelings that you're having. So I do want to bring in an important point here, that when I talk about feeling safe with someone, to be all of you in that, yes, every now and then you might explode and say sorry, right? But for the most part, you're feeling your feelings without projecting. And that's where Tantra tools come in as well, to learn how to communicate without all the story, without all the shaming, without all the projection. It's like, I feel this, I need this, and that's going to create safety. Like, I feel a bit sad and overwhelmed. I need some time with you tonight. That would make me really happy, instead of, I haven't seen you all week. Again, you said we were going to have time together and you still haven't made that time. And then by the time you finish with him, he's not fucking inspired at all to spend time with you, right? Or for a man, oh, I'm feeling, I don't want to be around you, or I need space. There's been so much emotion with you and it's just too much. And, then there's this shaming. It could just be, hey, owning, I feel frustrated and sad. I need some time with you where we're chilling, where we're not talking about relationship, where we're not diving deep into the emotional body, where we're just going for a walk or having a good time. And that would create safety for me. So when we can communicate from vulnerability and focus on what we do want instead of what we don't want, rather than dumping our emotional body on someone and expecting them to be the source of us being okay, we're simply, with curiosity, making a request in the direction of what we are wanting.
Absolutely. And a lot of what you've just spoken into, and actually for this whole live, is in Tantra 101, our free offering. So we will put a comment somewhere in Instagram in the comments after this live, so that you can access that, because it's an incredible resource and very in-depth.
And also, obviously we have a lot of offerings in the Academy that go deep into all of this, but if you want to have a playground of experimenting with authenticity, of experimenting with receiving space holding and actually getting that bodily transmission and experience of reparenting, we do a lot of that in Living Tantra Retreat. We do a lot of reparenting. We do a lot of practices where you get to feel someone's loving presence that doesn't have any agenda, practices where sexuality and the heart are connected, where you get to release stuck energy and witness other people in that and normalize the emotional body and feel that there is such a beautiful sacredness to allowing all of that, and then all the joy that's experienced. So there's one in Bali coming up with Tara and Aaron. Then there's one in a few weeks. And then there's one in Costa Rica at the end of the year with Aaron and myself. So everything's on our website. Check it all out. Of course, private sessions are available with both of us. Get the help that you need to increase your self-worth, because once your self-worth is increased, your receivership increases, and you can actually receive the love that you deserve, receive the money that you deserve. There's, a whole self-worth conversation we could have about money. And, I would say just start as a first step, start to become aware of how much you're seeking validation from the external world.
Intention is everything. It's not really what we do, it's how we do it and the intention behind it. I love that.
Yeah,
amazing. Thank you, honey. We're going to write on self-worth around money. I think that's a great one to speak it, so we can bring that to alive as well.
And self-worth around being a practitioner. So many people think they have to be fully healed before they can be a practitioner or a coach. And there's this judgment that there's something wrong if we're not like 100% of the time in our ease and joy. And it's like, yes, we can be consistently in that once our life is aligned, but there's always going to be pain in life. It's part of the flow. Pain and pleasure are always in the flow of life. And when we cannot resist the pain, it moves, and shifts, and it's part of life and part of the meditation of life. So non-resistance is such a big piece of all spiritual practice.
Absolutely. What a great closing comment. Boom. Thanks everyone for joining us. We'll be going live again soon, and we'll keep you all updated.
Thanks for listening to the Love, Sex and Freedom podcast. For more great free resources, in-person and online workshops, and our retreats, find us on Instagram and Facebook at Embodied Awakening Academy, or visit embodiedawakeningacademy.com.